Now, I'd like to start the third session of a side event that the how to tackle the issue of double burden of malnutrition. I'm Masayoshi Mizuno, the director for new business and food industry at the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries. I have been engaged in the preparation for this side event and Tokyo Nutrition Summit. And I'm going to support Director Steve Godfrey from Tokyo's conference room. I hope the enthusiasm for the discussion in this room could be well conveyed to the other side of this channel around the world. And possibly, if you sense some of the heated excitement of our conference room, that may possibly because we had successfully activated discussion in the previous meeting. And the session 1 and the session 2, the remaining effect still continues in this room. And also possibly it could reflect the good nutritious condition of myself and other participants in Tokyo. And if I can find another reason for that good enthusiasm for this discussion today of myself, it would be because I took some of newly developed product functional food by today's participating companies, whose effect is increasing the brain effect and lessening the fatigue. And I think it is still very effective. And more seriously, I'd like to start into the substantive discussion. And today's theme, the how to tackle the double burden of malnutrition. Japan has a long experience of tackling this issue through the food shortage period and also this malnutrition of double burden. And through these period, Japanese government as well as food industries have played a very important role. Some of the products produced by the participating companies today provided good flavor that has made Japanese consumers enjoy the meal even with less salt and pepper. And some other companies continuously provided the instant noodle, which contribute to the good food supply even in the office environment. And more important contribution has been made by many companies in Japanese food industries. And some of them will be available at the report of this side event, which is the specific action plan for the compact of this Tokyo Nutrition Summit. And more than 60 specific action plan by food company will be attached. I hope all participants today will have a look at these concrete plans. Today's main theme is how the global community will be well connected with these individual companies' efforts for that purpose of improving nutrition. And if these individual effort is made separately in isolation, the effect would be very limited. But if combined with more global efforts, these efforts could have large effects getting into that very strong movement around the world. So what matters is how each individual company could signal and send the message about their activities and how global players will accept these activities and how we together can make them well organically connected. That's the key issue we should aim at. I'm looking forward to hearing good activity report and good insight for the common purpose of improving nutrition in Japan and around the world. And at the end of the meeting, we will be more informed and well prepared for improving the nutritious condition and tackling the issue of double nutrition, of simultaneous over-nutrition and under-nutrition, today's theme. From Japan, we have participants from each company, the Nippon Ham and NISSIN Food Company and DSM Japan and Ajinomoto, and from financial institute, the Norinchukin Bank, and from overseas, the global players, we have WFP and the FAO and WBCSD and ATNI. And from these participants together, we will have a very meaningful and fruitful discussion. And I will leave Director Steve Godfrey for today's good discussion and your good skill in presiding today's discussion. Thank you.
Mr. Mizuno-san, yeah, greetings. Steve Godfrey here, Director of Policy and External Relations at GAIN. Greetings to Tokyo on this exciting day when you launch Nutrition for Growth. Many of us have been working with you and your colleagues for some time now, over 2 years. And believe me, we are so sorry you can't host us personally in Tokyo, because Japanese cuisine is famous worldwide and we've enjoyed it many times. So thanks for your opening comments. I wanted to give some context for our discussion. We have a great panel today, both international and Japanese colleagues. By stepping back and looking at some of the basic conditions of malnutrition, which I think are important to understand, because how the private sector can respond does depend a lot on the nature of the specific form of malnutrition. So I think we all know that there are worrying trends in malnutrition globally, and the problem's quite complex. You have, at the same time, high levels of deficiency in vitamins and minerals, maybe 2 billion people, rising chronic hunger towards 800 million people, nearly 2 billion overweight and obese, and then we have specific problems, particularly affecting children around underweight, wasting, and stunting. And these are all very different types of malnutrition to which the contributions of private sector need to be adapted. So just briefly to go through the big picture, we all know that the number of undernourished people in the world really continues to rise, partly on the back of the COVID pandemic. And there's not only been a short-term increase in the last 12 months, but as things stand, if you look at those curves, we're going to have zero hunger target not met by 2030, and levels of hunger, chronic hunger, even higher than at the beginning of 2005. Perhaps the most tragic and disturbing aspect of the impact of the pandemic has been the impact on children who are wasted. Wasting is low weight for height. It's the most acute form, the most troubling form of human suffering in terms of food systems. We know what children who are wasted look like, their skin and bones, literally. And although the numbers fell in the last 10 years, the recent studies in Lancet show that the numbers are going back up because of poor diets. And the FAO earlier this year really presented a very compelling picture of the broader problem of how we get our world population to universally access healthy diets. More than 3 billion people worldwide cannot afford a healthy diet. Most of those are in South Asia, and in Africa. And in Africa, a stunning 3 in 4 people cannot afford a healthy diet. So if you look at this global picture, the countries in yellow, in orange, in red, this is where the cost of a healthy diet is simply unaffordable. It's several times the amount that people can take from their daily income for food. And then, as you said, Mizuno-san, the problem of the co-presence, the joint presence of both underweight, so undernutrition and overnutrition. And this is a complicated picture of all the lines. These different colors are different parts of the world. But of course, the most important thing is to see that it's everywhere. Everywhere obesity is rising, not just in one part of the world. And we all think of, for example, Japan. We know you have intrinsically an incredibly healthy diet, and you have relatively, for the OECD countries, very low levels of obesity. But even these in Japan are rising. And of course, the human and the economic costs of overweight and obesity are tremendous because of their links to non-communicable diseases. So what we're going to be discussing today is really how do we go from where we are, which is a food economy that in many ways is very dynamic. It's fed an increasing world population over the last 40 to 50 years. But it's the food system which is not delivering safe and nutritious foods to very large numbers of people in a way that will enable them to have healthier diets. And I think our session today, we're going to look at how can we change this in general, and in particular, what is the contribution of the private sector to that. So the point I wanted to take away from these few opening remarks is that the different forms of malnutrition, hunger, overweight, obesity, examples like wasting, micronutrient deficiencies, need different and tailored approaches and solutions. And we know that because business is the food system, it has to be a strong partner in challenging and changing this reality. So for many years now, we've talked about joint actions by government, businesses, and communities, linking the different factors which affect the availability, affordability, and accessibility to these healthy diets. But we're not really making progress at all fast enough to meet the Sustainable Development Goal targets. In thinking this through, we also need to be very mindful and aware of the issue of dietary diversity and culture. Every nation, in many cases, even subnational food systems vary quite widely. And therefore, we need to have local ownership and guidance to be successful. And then thinking about the history of the 2021, we've seen not just the impact of the pandemic, but the food environments are not just something we have to focus on from the point of view of healthy diets, but also sustainability and planetary impact. So with those few general framing comments, I want us to move now to our first panel, and we have 3 fantastic speakers, incredibly experienced. And I'm going to ask Abby Perry from WFP to open with some general comments on, from a global perspective, from a UN agency, ways that she thinks business can be an effective partner in tackling malnutrition. Before you speak, Abby, I want us to say to everybody that Abby recently joined ③ from UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Organization, UK government. And she was the lead for the UK government on nutrition and has been involved in the planning for the N4G for the last 2 years before she moved to FAO, where she's continued that. So big welcome to you, Abby. You know so much about this. What can you say, particularly to colleagues in the Japanese private sector, about how they can be an effective partner in tackling these problems? Abby.
Thanks so much, Steve, and thanks so much to colleagues in Japan for allowing me to join this panel today. It's a really important conversation to be having. I mean, as Steve has noted in his presentation, I just want to reiterate again the extent of the challenge and how critical the situation is that we're facing. We hosted a side event yesterday, actually, on the state of nutrition and diets in fragile and conflict-affected states in particular, and noted that this issue of a real stubborn challenge of undernutrition combined with increasing overweight and obesity, driven largely by a lack of access to healthy diets, is a really key issue, including in these very vulnerable contexts. So it is incumbent on all of us to really think through how we can contribute to this. WFP has got a strong history of working very closely with the private sector actors. We are the largest humanitarian organization in the world, and we reach over 150 million people on an annual basis. And we've really valued the very positive relationships that we've been able to build with businesses as we look at the challenges that we face. And this includes with Ajinomoto, with whom we've had a very effective partnership in Ghana. So there are 4 ways that I wanted to highlight that I think we've learned that we can benefit from really effective and impactful private sector partnerships. So the first is really to make, for businesses to really make use of the existing networks that are present in many of the countries that we work, that help to really facilitate effective business engagement. So for example, with GAIN, WFP co-convenes the Sun Business Network, and we work in more than 27 countries to mobilize more than 1,000 business members, including Ajinomoto and DSM, I know who are both involved today. And this is a really key forum to help ensure that businesses can see the types of challenges that countries are facing and to look at how to most effectively and efficiently address those, and also to support learning across the business community and best practice as well. The second way that we've really seen work is where businesses can share their expertise. And this is something that we've really benefited again from the partnership that we've had with Ajinomoto. And this expertise is really critical across the whole range of domains needed to help support access to more nutritious foods. So across the agri-tech space, looking at new formulations of products, but also thinking about marketing and how we understand consumer demand. It isn't that straightforward to support uptake of more nutritious foods. So we really need to think through how to understand consumers better. And this is where the expertise of the business community can be really key. The third way is to actually think beyond food. So we know that in many of the more difficult contexts that we're working in, we still face major issues with how food is stored, transported, with information systems that make sure that we can get what's needed, where it's needed, and when it's needed. And so really harnessing the expertise of companies beyond the food sector is also something that is really critical. We know that food loss and food waste, which is associated with lack of access to the right types of storage and transportation, plays a key role in undermining access to healthy diets. And certainly as WFP, we really value investments in areas such as digital innovations to really make sure that we can understand the people that we're trying to reach, what they need, and whether they are benefiting. The final thing I want to note in terms of the positive contribution that businesses can make is to really act responsibly and be accountable. This is quite a challenging environment to work in, where we have rising overweight and obesity and challenges because of people consuming unhealthy diets, and where we also need to really protect and support safe infant feeding, particularly breastfeeding. We absolutely need to make sure that all of us are being as responsible as we can be and being accountable for our actions. I do just want to note that it's absolutely invaluable to have the business community on board to fight this massively challenging global dilemma that we have when it comes to a lack of access to healthy diets. So I really, really value the positive contributions, and particularly welcome hearing more about the commitments that you're all making as we head into the main N4G summit. Thanks, and back to you, Steve.
Thanks, Abby, and sorry I misspoke and introduced your move to FAO, not WFP. Sorry, it's early in the morning here, colleagues in Tokyo. Yeah, I think that's an important set of comments about how you translate the expertise of the private sector into the realities of the problems that you and WFP are, are really trying to address. And I wondered maybe if you could answer, or maybe make a general comment. You've observed this space around N4G since its beginning, really, in the UK. Do you sense a change in how the public sector looks at the private sector, and vice versa? Do you sense a momentum around the private sector getting more involved in the issues that worry you every day at WFP?
Yes, I mean, I think the combination of much more discussion about the importance of good policy environments for governments, combined with really strong accountability tools like the Access to Nutrition Index, where we're very happy to have Inga on the line from ATNI, combined with the business community really being open to thinking through quite creatively how to contribute to this, I think has changed the nature of that narrative. I think it's something we're all going to have to continue to work on. It's clear, as I said, that there is no way forward without effective business contribution in this space. But I do think we have to walk forward together with a sense of recognizing the different roles and responsibilities that we each have. And yeah, to really think through how to keep those dialogues open, to make sure that we can have space for discussion, that we can protect government policy setting, whilst also really finding the ways to support innovation. And I think GAIN has been a really important player in terms of being able to create some of those spaces, and also to think through how to harness the business expertise that we know is out there and that can offer really, really important solutions. So I think it has shifted, most certainly.
Thanks. That's great, Abby. I want now to introduce Nancy Aburto, Deputy Director of Food Nutrition at FAO. And I know that Japan has worked quite closely with FAO in the last year, and we're lucky to have you, Nancy, partly because we came off the back of the Food Systems Summit, and in the work around healthy diets, which is our discussion today, FAO was the lead UN agency, and we certainly from the GAIN side work really closely with you and your colleagues on that. So I'm really putting the same kind of question to you, Nancy. How do you see from a FAO side the role of business in tackling this transformation around diets?
Thank you, Steve, for the question. And Mr. Mizuno, thank you for the invitation today. I think that all of us here today, as just a fundamental principle for the reason for joining, is we recognize that better nutrition it offers us one of the greatest developmental opportunities in the world. And even Mr. Mizuno started off our session with some words about how better nutrition was helping raise our energy levels in the room today. And of course, we all know that better nutrition starts with what we eat. So in this discussion about addressing all forms of malnutrition, of course, healthy diets are one of those underlying drivers that is necessary to address all those forms of malnutrition. However, this really is talking about a beginning point of food and all the products from agriculture, including forest, aquatic, and terrestrial systems. And all of that makes for quite a broad spectrum of stakeholders. And these are stakeholders from across the agri-food systems. And so it really makes perfect sense that FAO, as the UN agency for food and agriculture, has put better nutrition really as one of our fundamental aspirations. And we have a vision of all people eating healthy diets from sustainable agri-food systems. And that sustainable part's important, and Steve mentioned it in his remarks, that we're not just talking about healthy diets for today. We've got to ensure that we are protecting natural resources needed for those agri-food systems to be able to deliver those healthy diets into the future as well. So, so our work in nutrition, FAO's work in nutrition, really takes that broad perspective, that agri-food system approach. But that concept, again, being so broad and encompassing so many stakeholders, obligates us to think about multi-sectorial collaboration in an important and thoughtful way, as it's really essential. So really, for getting down to the crux of Steve's question, I'm going to highlight two important types of collaborations that FAO sees that are particularly relevant with private sector partners when it comes to thinking of how we can transform those agri-food systems for healthy diets. The first, of course, is with small and medium enterprises. Those are the backbone of the food supply chain. And this is one of those areas where FAO really needs to acknowledge the continuous support from Japan as we reach out to small and medium enterprises. We've led on capacity strengthening for SMEs in partnership with our sister UN agencies. We've also worked on the development of really co-created training modules, e-modules, to support capacity strengthening. So the SMEs themselves have joined in with us to say, these are our gaps, and this is where we really see that a UN agency could help support in capacity strengthening. Another part of that is also building the business case for SMEs to pursue nutrition sensitive models. Like, why would a small or medium enterprise put nutrition out in front? What is the business case for that? Because those enterprises need to have a strong business case to do that. We also advocate for public-private partnerships as well as an important part of this puzzle. And that's in support of nutrition sensitive food chains and value chains for supporting clear nutrition goals. So for instance, jointly with partners, some who are around the table today, we've organized various consultation forums to again learn of the challenges from SMEs and identify priority areas for support to sustainability and impact of diets for today and in the future. Now, another relevant example, the second relevant example I wanted to bring forth today is FAO's work as a knowledge broker. This is where our mandate as a UN agency can help us in convening and supporting, bringing together those that have skills and capacities and technologies and innovations with those that could benefit most from a skills transfer for sustainable solutions. We'll really work to try to help support building of broad partnerships that can link those enterprises with skills with those that want to strengthen skills. And these broad partnerships with diverse range of actors across agri-food systems really help to catalyze a coherence in both policy and collective action across agri-food systems for healthy diets. So we really recognize that organizing the side event today is the first day of the Tokyo Nutrition for Growth Summit is extremely timely and really in an important moment to highlight some critical commitments in partnership in that area of nexus between the public, the private, where UN agencies and also our partners in the private sector can support nutrition action. So I really trust that these dialogues across these different sectors during the rest of today's event and throughout the summit can be an opportunity for us to create synergies with that ultimate goal of better nutrition. And I'm glad to be here today to really remind everyone that FAO stands ready to partner in making the aspiration of better nutrition a reality. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, thanks, Nancy. Great stuff. I mean, just one quick question to you. Do you see, I mean, I'm glad the colleagues in Tokyo have just come off a session earlier on government perspectives in this area. I mean, do you see a strong appetite amongst national governments, so your partner governments, around this linkage between SMEs, international agencies and the bigger companies? Is that something to build on for the Japanese companies?
Steve, I do think that that's something to build on. And like I said, one thing that we see from an FAO perspective is really that demand for that knowledge brokering. So we recognize that SMEs are so important for the provision of foods for a healthy diet, but oftentimes they have challenges in being able to reach sustainability measures that can provide durable solutions for healthy diets for the future, or implementing innovations that they see implemented in other places, or building that long-term planning that they would like to do for their business model perspective. So I do indeed see, Steve, that this is an area where there is an appetite and we can continue to work together to make this happen.
Thank you so much, Nancy. The third international panel speaker is Diane Holdorf, Executive Vice President of WBCSD. I don't know what to say about WBCSD, except you've been the absolute anchor and driver of private sector planning and engagement for the N4G and for the Food Systems Summit and many other platforms. And, you know, because of the range of companies that sit in your community, Diane, I think we're hoping you can give us some examples of how businesses continue to take leadership for impactful commitments, you know, for N4G and for the wider SDGs. So welcome, and maybe now you can answer that sort of general question about private sector dispositions towards this area.
Thank you so much, Steve. So happy to do so. Really so appreciate your leadership together with Mizuno-san in putting this together today. And a deep thanks to the government of Japan for bringing together, despite the challenges, this incredibly important event. As you said, Steve, we all wish we were there together with you in Tokyo, but really it's been an honor to be able to contribute so significantly to the development of this event and the momentum of the private sector and supporting and implementing the outcomes that we're all striving to share. I am Diane Holdorf, Executive Vice President at World Business Council for Sustainable Development. And together with GAIN and so many other partners here, it's been, as I said, a privilege to help represent the role of the private sector in its leadership that it has to take to help tackle malnutrition. Together with the UN Food Systems Summit, the Tokyo Nutrition for Growth Summit this year has really galvanized business action to address all forms of malnutrition. And that takes multiple pathways, and it takes engagement of all sizes of businesses, like Nancy was just referring to, as well as all stakeholders and actors around the world. It really takes that kind of collective effort. And this summit, the Nutrition for Growth Summit, with its official kickoff today, truly does come at a critical time. It's bringing a really important close to this Nutrition Year of Action and keeping a very sharp light on the need for ambitious targets towards healthy and nutritious diets. We see this summit as a really unique opportunity to bring together governments, donors and philanthropies, NGOs, civil society, academics, and of course business, with the role that business has to play at a global and a regional level to address these challenges of malnutrition. And there's so many linkages, Steve, as you've pointed out, and Abby, as you pointed out, between malnutrition and the challenges of poverty, underdevelopment, climate risk, environmental degradation. These things have to be addressed collectively. And it does take this multi-stakeholder engagement to create the solutions that will actually drive these shifts and the transformations that we need. Over the past few months, business has really stepped up its leadership and its commitments for better diets and food systems transformation. Together with the other members of the Nutrition for Growth Business Constituency Group, WBCSD helped lead the development of the Responsible Business Pledge for Better Nutrition. This provides a framework for joint private sector smart commitments that are being presented here at the Nutrition for Growth Summit today and in coming days, with really big examples of what that looks like. The co-development of this framework, together with our business members and the other partners in the business constituency group, really brought together months of work to put forward action plans and the commitments behind them to tackle malnutrition. These processes take a lot of time and dedication, but by bringing business in from the very beginning and building those linkages between the broader food system transformation agenda, the importance of nutrition at the heart of that. WBCSD has really tried to help our members build and showcase comprehensive health and sustainability strategies. Businesses are really now showing that leadership on critical levels of malnutrition. A key example of that is the signatories to the Responsible Business Pledge and how those commitments in this Nutrition for Growth Summit demonstrate action. I'm going to share what those 7 commitment areas are, but note that a company can't make a commitment in this area unless they commit to at least 3 of these 7 actions, which speaks to the systemic and holistic solutions that are required. So the business pledge includes actions around nutrition smart agriculture, 1, 2, product innovation and reformulation for improved nutrition, 3, changing business model innovation for improved nutrition, 4, keeping the focus on responsible marketing, 5, promoting healthy eating in a variety of forms, 6, assuring workforce nutrition, excuse me, and 7, finance and investment to accelerate the improved nutrition transitions that we need. Over these past weeks, the increasing number of companies, as I've said, have submitted their nutrition commitments to the Nutrition Accountability Framework, complying with the Nutrition for Growth principles of engagement. And we're going to hear several of these examples, I know, in your next panel. But let me just share a couple of examples from WBCSD members that show this kind of commitment above and beyond actions within the Nutrition for Growth business, Responsible Business Pledge. For example, Cargill by 2030 will leverage its expertise in animal protein production to improve nutrition and economic livelihoods of 100 million people through their Hatching Hope Global initiative. This supports SME poultry production, strengthens local poultry markets, increases local poultry consumption, including, of course, eggs, and works in collaboration with many partners, including their co-founder, Heifer International, which really speaks again to this importance of multi-stakeholder partnership. Another example, Steve, that I'd like to highlight is Unilever, who's doubled the number of products delivering positive nutrition by 2025 across their portfolios, and have committed that 70% of their portfolio will meet WHO-aligned nutritional standards by 2022. I know DSM has some exciting commitments. They're here in your panel. I'll let them speak to those when they come to that. And then finally, I'll just add one more example, and that's Compass Group, the largest global food service provider. They've developed and launched food waste reduction toolkits and training programs that are, as well as a healthy eating framework that helps to change options and food waste reductions for millions of servings around the world each day. So, Steve, we're really optimistic that after witnessing these business commitments on nutrition, the acceleration that we've seen through this year in particular, and the actions that those are leading to, that companies will continue to step up their efforts to end malnutrition and promote equitable access to healthy diets for all. We're very encouraged in particular by the commitments that are being shared here by Japanese food companies to scale up those efforts towards regenerative and equitable food systems that help to really produce healthy, safe, and nutritious foods for all, to ensure that we get to this highest attainable standard of health and well-being that is expected and appropriate. You know, given the depths of the challenges of malnutrition and the accelerations that we've seen since the outbreak of COVID pandemic, which has actually brought us backwards, not forward, we support that urgent action is absolutely required across all sectors, all stakeholders, and are here to really demonstrate the commitment and support of business in finding those solutions. Thanks so much.
Hey, thanks, Diane. You know, one question always comes to my mind around accountability. Abby mentioned the kind of accountability and acting responsibly. I have an impression that actually the companies that want to do things like being accountable. This is sort of a bit counterintuitive because business is always saying, oh, yet more reporting. Is that true, that the companies almost like to be like a clear accountability framework? I'm talking about the responsible companies that want to do good. What's your view on that?
Absolutely, Steve. You know, this is an area where companies welcome both consistent legislation, and it's not often that companies seek that kind of regulation, but this is an area that helps advance for all when we get it right. But as you said, reporting as well, because it's only through that transparency that progress can actually be documented and demonstrated. We're seeing that continue to improve. It's an area where we don't have the same sort of consistent KPIs that exist in other areas of these challenges, climate being a great example, where we have consistent global scientific levels of objectives that companies are set out to reach, like the 1.5 degree commitments. But we're getting there on nutrition. And the more we do that focused effort and create that kind of consistent and credible KPIs, the better off we'll be. And I think we saw a great example of what still needs to be done this year when the World Benchmarking Alliance published its first ever food and ag sector benchmark, where nutrition was the area that scored lowest. So we know there's still a tremendous amount of work to do, but we're starting to see that momentum, Steve, as you spoke to, and that increased transparency and reporting can only help us go faster.
Thanks, Diane. Okay, we're going to now move on to the main course here, which is the presentation by Japanese companies. And I'm reminded, Morishima-san from Ajinomoto, 2 years ago, I sat in the meeting room of Ajinomoto, where we introduced N4G to the private sector with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, your colleagues from down the road. And I must say, I've had the privilege, as having chaired this, to look through and see these presentations. And I am really amazed at how much progress was made between those two meetings, today and then. I mean, the level of commitment, and I want here just to call out and mention Nutrition Japan public-private platform, which we've worked with Diane over the last 2 years. But I'm really amazed at how concrete and specific the commitments are that we're going to hear about. So we're now going to hear 4 presentations by 4 Japanese companies that have made commitments at N4G. I'd like to first ask Nippon Ham Foods, Maeda-san, Director and Managing Executive Officer, to tell us about their commitment.
Thank you very much for your introduction. My name is Maeda from Nippon Ham NH Foods. So I would like to move on to my presentation. Next slide, please. So the most important concept in our company is the corporate philosophy that we have. So under the basic theme of joy of eating, we want to contribute to society. And each of our employees can feel truly fulfilled by getting involved in this kind of initiative. And this is the group vision that we have as a milestone, leading all the way up to 2030. So in Japanese, we have another word, but in English, it means unleash new potentials for protein. So this talks about a stable supply of food with an increased level of consideration to the environment. And this is the Vision 2030 and what we do in comparison to these SDG goals. So we have identified these materialities on this grid. So this is all connected to how we will be growing our business in each of these SDG-related sectors. And this chart outlines the importance of our supplying obligations. NH Food Group is providing about 6% of the average supply of protein to the Japanese person. And of that, we are providing 10.6% in animal protein and livestock protein, as I have put on this grid. And this is the grid of the commitment at the Tokyo Nutrition for Growth Summit. So the first point is related to food allergy initiatives. So we want to expand the number of options that are available to people who have food allergies so that they will be able to choose from a wider range of foods. The second point is about increasing options for protein intake. And by diversifying the options available for protein intake, including alternative proteins, this is another area we would like to enhance. And the third point is about the hyper-aging society that Japan is facing, and we would like to develop food that will be catering to those part of the population. And we would like to provide patented materials so that we will be able to duly accommodate the needs of the coming era. And these are the figures of our commitments. And this is about commitment number one of food allergy initiatives. So we would like to walk together with those people suffering from food allergy problems. And this is something we have started as early as the 1960s. And so the allergy-related products, and we also have the allergy checking kit that is provided to the consumers. And we also have food products that do not use the 7 allergens in our foods. And this is about offering a greater choice of protein or providing more alternatives. And by expanding the options available, we are using soy meat and sausages and hamburgers made from soy meat is one example. And also another theme is using less water and using a less amount of land. And the second point is we also are looking at cultured meat using cultured animal cells. And we would like to eventually see fruition as a business. And the third point is, in order to accommodate the hyper-aging society, we would like to provide functional products and to maintain the activities of the brain and also the exercising abilities. This is something we launched on December 1st. And the functional element called imidazole dipeptides, which is something that is included abundantly in chicken meat, is used for this product. And throughout the years of research, we have obtained a patent, and we have been able to put this together into an actual product that was launched into the market. So we would like to further build on this potential. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much, Maeda-san. I must say, when I came to Japan, it struck me there were 2 areas where Japan is really innovating, where we don't hear about this much anywhere else. The first you mentioned around allergens, food safety and allergens. And the second, the aging population, special needs of aging population. Development community tends to focus more on developing countries where you have high levels of young, whereas we know that aging populations are a big issue in many other countries. So I wanted maybe to ask you one question. In terms of your innovation and your innovative thinking in those 3 areas, what can international organizations do to help you apply that innovation in new areas?
Well, for the allergy-related products, it is quite difficult and challenging to export these products overseas outside of Japan. So the manufacturing facility system that we have domestically we will need to work with a reliable partner, especially in the manufacturing areas. So if any of you are interested in this area, we are more than willing to listen and discuss.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Maeda. Our second presentation is from Mr. Tanaka from NISSIN Foods, he is the Managing Executive Officer and CDO, Chief Development Officer. Over to you, sir.
Hi.
Yes. My name is Mitsuru Tanaka from the NISSIN Food Holdings Company. First, I'd like to express our gratitude to those who have been made the effort to make N4G Summit 2021 possible, including MAFF officials. Today, I'd like to share our commitment to realize nutrition improvement, and also how we are tackling find the solution of the double burden of malnutrition. So this slide shows the environment surrounding our NISSIN Whole Foods Group. Recently, we have seen an increasing level of interest in ESG and SDGs, and people's expectation to the roles played by businesses are changing too. Greenhouse gases and ethical purchasing and the environmental related challenges, and also the nutrition and health challenges, including overnutrition and undernutrition. Those challenges in particular have significant attention. So to our group, these challenges are very critical challenge in addition to the traditional challenge of the food safety. So based on these important challenges, our group developed a commitment in the following areas: wellness products, food allergen tests, and meat alternatives, and food loss and waste. This time, I would like to focus on the wellness, and I'd like to share how we are tackling this challenge. At our group, for wellness related to the food, we implement the multifaceted innovation to make a contribution to find a solution in double burden of malnutrition globally. First, we are aiming to improve health value and nutrition for entire product portfolio. For overnutrition issue, we reduce the component having an impact of negatively through the over intake. And also for the malnutrition, we are fortifying vitamins and mineral and dietary fiber to improve health value. And also to provide the world, people can choose what they want to eat at the time their choice and with the volume they want. We are tackling complete nutrition meals. And also our CEO, Mr. Ando, is serving as the chairperson of the Japan Association for the World Food Program. So we are tackling the challenges for the developing countries' malnutrition issues. Through these innovations, including double burden of malnutrition, we are trying to find a solution by approaching the issues of wellness of the people across the world. And that's it from me. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks, Mr. Tanaka. I think it's impressive the way all of the colleagues from the Japanese companies that the food strategy is well integrated into the broader SDG challenges and the focus on environment, sustainability, so on. I think the kind of question I would ask you is a bit similar to the one that I asked to Mr. Maeda, which is, how do you see international partners such as ourselves helping you take your strategy to benefit new consumers, in other markets?
First of all, our founder, Mr. Momofuku Ando, invented the instant noodle, and the deliciousness and the safety and convenience and the long storage property and affordability. So this is very innovative product because those principles and the main parts were considered in the development, and consumer needs and demands are changing after that, and the nutrition and the health and the environmental conservation. These two elements were added to form 7 principles of the development for our group. As in the beginning, the food itself has a regional characteristics. It's a local, and it has a deeply rooted in the local culture and local practice. So regional development approach is also necessary too, because there is no cookie cutter solution globally. So each country's the environment and also research institute and players, to those actors, we need to work with them to find a new innovation. especially for the international organization related, we hope to have an open discussion so that the practitioners level should have an open conversation, so that we'd like to build such relationship with the international organizations to have an open discussion. That's it.
Yeah, I think that's an important comment because, both, well, really all of our international speakers, definitely Nancy and Abby, made this point about the knowledge transfer and the ability to create structures that enable bringing together innovation, technology, and different markets. And that may be something we return to in the conclusions for this this session. I'd like now to invite our third speaker, Mr. Maruyama, who's president of DSM in Japan, to make his presentation. So.
Thank you very much, Steve. This is Kaz Maruyama, DSM Japan president. First of all, thank you, Steve, and thank you, Mizuno and MAFF, to make the place for DSM. It's our pleasure, it's our honor to be here. It's very unfortunate to have we can have you guys and also our president, CEOs, all other colleagues here in Tokyo. But on behalf of them, I'm talking about the DSM a little bit. Please, next slide. So the DSM is a purpose-led, science-based company and a global leader of the health, nutrition, and bioscience. And our purpose is, you see here, to create better lives for all. And this all doesn't mean not only the all of us, but also the people in the generation to come. So our business is intrinsically the rooting in the sustainability or SDGs because of that reason. So as a private company, but we are not doing just a charity. So we often say like doing well by doing good, because we believe with that way, the business can change the world, have the power to change the world with the sustainable and scalable way. The next slide, please. And prior to the Food System Summit, DSM submitted the 7 new and quantified food system commitment, and that shows how we strive for better health for people, a more sustainable planet, and also improving livelihood. We did the 3 of them. We selected for today for the goal of the Nutrition for Growth Summit. And the first one is enable to close the micronutrient gap of 800 million vulnerable people by 2030. So we will step up our improved nutrition programs with fortified food and public health supplement, and step up our cooperation with partners such as the WFP or UNICEF or World Vision, amongst others. So we aim to reach the most vulnerable people, notably mothers and children, nutritious, so that through the nutritious school food and the employee, the workforce nutrition. And second one is supporting the livelihood of 500,000 smallholder farmers. And by the way, our deadline is 2030, and we aim to quadruple our supplier engagement, expanding from our joint venture in Rwanda. I explain a little bit later with Africa Improved Foods. So with that, we try to extend the benefit to the small-scale farmers to the 500,000. And the final one is the good workforce nutrition. We ensure access to the good nutrition information and healthy nutrition for all employees of us. So the next slide, please. So that we have, based on our human nutrition and food application science, we bring the differentiated portfolio of the fortified foods, including the fortified food, especially in Asia. The fortified rice has a very, very strong impact with the local habit of the food habit and the preference. And with this, we try to achieve fill the gap of the 800 million vulnerable people, the target number 1. Next slide, please. And this is an example of the public-private partnership, actually. And this is Africa Improved Food. And this is a joint venture of the Rwandan government and DSM with the investment from the public sector, actually IFC and some government, the finance sector. And the important thing is this company actually hired 300 people at the place, and also buying the raw material from the local small stakeholders, small farmers. Already we bought from the 130K of the small scale farmers, and making like the nutrient polish type of thing. and sell that to the region. So we try to establish the very resilient food system in the region, and with that, we try to improve the livelihood of the people in the Kiwali of the Rwanda. So next slide, please. And of course, we're gonna do this only ourselves. So this is always a partnership. So we have the long-standing partnership with the World Food Program from since 2007, I think, and also the UNICEF World Vision, and amongst others, we are working together to make our the aim the reality. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks very much indeed, Mr. Maruyama. I wanted to ask you, the Africa Improved Foods is important because it is targeted to low income. And that's a really stubborn and difficult constituency to reach because it doesn't have money. Now, that project is, in my experience, it's the biggest public-private investment in nutrition I know of in terms of its value. $100 million, was it? Something like that. What did you learn from that? Because I know it wasn't easy to combine the investment. What was the lesson you took from that project, which was very ambitious and has succeeded despite many challenges?
Thank you very much for asking. Actually, the Africa Improved Food was not that profitable in the very beginning, of course, but because of a lot of people's effort, I heard until now it's getting so okay. So the plan is that we want to make the second and third Africa Improved Food in Sub-Saharan Africa to achieve the third goal of the commitment, by the way. And by the way, to answer this question, I had some conversation with the people who really worked with this AIF, the project. And then there are two key lessons I heard. One is that this is really the integrated approach. So it is very important to make the strong ecosystem with the multi-stakeholders. So like inclusion model with the smallholders, of course, and to have the stable supply and quality input. And also we need to have that highly trained staff, and we need to have the world-class factory. So with that, also we need to have the big route to the market. So when you start a business, we need to have the first customer anyway, so that we need to establish some of the big route to the market. And in this case, for example, like a humanitarian organization like a World Food Program was the big customer, so say the first customer for the project. So those kind of overall integrated approach is very important, but somebody have to lead the partnership. And in this case, the DSM had a strong power to lead the activity. So that was the 1 point to learn. And second one is connecting to that, the persistence and the patience. So it takes some time, and it's not easy to get all the stakeholders together. But with that, learn from others and involve local governments and the stakeholders, and because African market is the future. So that is the thought, the people who work this project very hard at the time, and that's why they made success with this the very impressive project.
Thank you so much. That's great. Final speaker from Japanese company in this section is Morishima-san of Ajinomoto. He's the executive officer in charge of sustainability and communication. Sir.
Thank you very much for your introduction. My name is Morishima from Ajinomoto. I am so grateful to be a part of this session. So I'd like to share our group's effort to improve nutrition. So Ajinomoto Group utilizes the amino acids and to become a business to find a solution for wellness for people worldwide. We have a targeted outcome. One is reduce our environment impact by 50%, and the other is help extend the healthy life expectancy of 1 billion people. And the double burden of malnutrition, it is very important to find a comprehensive solution to address the double burden issue. This slide shows our approach to nutrition improvement. To address the double burden of malnutrition, we got delicious salt reduction and the sugar and fat reduction. What should increase is to have a protein intake, and it should be optimized. And most of the countries, they actually have excess salt, over 5 grams a day per day, and also protein intake. As many countries are experiencing an aging population, this intake is very important to prevent frail. We have our specific strategy, that is nutrition without compromise, which is placed at the center of this slide. There are 3 areas: nutrition without compromising taste. So even though there is a reduced salt, we should keep deliciousness. The other second area is that nutrition without compromising access, so that nobody would be left behind. The third area is to have a nutrition without compromising the local way of life, respecting the way the local people are living. So these 3 are also important and effective in making sure the maintenance of the people's life. This is one example of the case. Since last year, globally, we have initiated a SMASH-O delicious salt reduction program. We utilize umami and dashi broth. Although we have a reduced sodium, you can possibly you can keep deliciousness. It's based on the in-depth understanding of the people living. Digital video utilized to motivate the people to have a reduced salt recipe, and there is an introduction recipe to ensure it. And the third is to provide seasonings useful for the salt reduction. So in this manner, we encourage people to change behaviors and stabilize the change behavior. And the government and distribution, academia, and the media companies, but we are proceeding with the activities by having the partnership with these different actors. This slide shows our nutrition commitment. Currently, to 700 million people, we currently provide deliciousness focused food, and also we aim to provide delicious, well-balanced food to 1 billion people. And we should provide delicious the food, which should be healthy, and also there should be a contribution to people's wellness, and there should be a provision of health and nutrition improvement. And the innovation with academia and partnership with multi-stakeholders and the building of the ecosystem, those will help us to aim at the higher level of the achievement. And we make a commitment so that we proceed and accelerate this effort. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I wanted to ask you the same question I asked your colleague, Maruyama-san. And apologies, I introduced you as Sir, but I couldn't see the screen in advance, so my apologies for that. But can you say something about your experiences in Africa as a company? We know of that in Ghana and elsewhere, and what you learned from building partnerships that work on the ground.
Yes, in Ghana, we wanted to provide the support for the weaning babies. So this is a project to improve nutrition in Ghana. It is a long-standing campaign and effort. And the corn or maize is an ingredient, and this local food, cocoa, have using corn. There is addition of the elements to that. We respect local people's behavior and culture, and we are in alignment with such ways of the people living to ensure the nutrition improvement. That is an important factor. I referred to the nutrition without compromise. There, we respect the local culture. So that's the third area of the strategy. And this is what we learned from the experiences and the public-private partnership and partnership with many different people, with many different partnership was possible. The Ajinomoto Foundation is actively engaged in this program in Ghana. Ghana's Ministry of Health and WHO, WHB, and other international organizations, NGO, NPOs, and local food companies and local distributors and the wholesalers, and also regional communities, including homemakers, and also via nurses to younger mothers. We educate about the importance of the nutrition. So we got the very close involvement of the people there, and thus we got a very solid partnership as an outcome. There is a school meal project in Vietnam, and I mentioned the Smasio project, salt reduction project, and many local governments and also media and also retailers with other producers of food. So with these actors, you should build a effective partnership. By having such a partnership for the first time, you can have a successful scaled up of the program. So turning your notion into the practice, by doing so, for the first time, you can make a contribution to the society. So we should be in alignment with different multi-stakeholders and building an ecosystem as a result. That is a very important activity.
Thanks for those observations. Very helpful. We now have two segments which we're going to do as fast as we can on the ecosystem for the broader framework for these private sector partnerships. One on financing, and secondly on accountability. So first, I'm going to ask Bas Rüter, who's the Global Head of Sustainability for Rabobank, headquartered in Netherlands, to speak with his colleague from the Norinchukin Bank. Bas.
Many thanks, Steve and Mizuno-san, on behalf of the Japanese government, for the opportunity to discuss the important topic of malnutrition and to explain the added value of partnerships in our attempt to solving it from the perspective of the financial sector. And we indeed do so from the angle of our partnership with the respected partner Norinchukin Bank, where we have additional synergy as a result of our geographical activities, but also we partner on the knowledge on food and agriculture and ESG issues within the food and ag domain. And of course, the financial sector is a sector that has a self-interest in making sure the food system transition and the topic of malnutrition is treated in a proper manner, because we of course face an increased need for food on the one side, especially in Africa and Asia, but we need to do so in less environmental and nature impact. And if we want to switch to net zero, nature positive, we need to also take care of this more nutritional value element of it. Now, if we do so, we run the risk of affordability, and that needs to be taken into account as well. And it is important for us to take action on this topic, because if we do not do so, we either will have clients who face new legislation regarding the topic of malnutrition for which they are not ready yet, potentially, or we face consumer preferences for which they have not anticipated either. So it is important to us to make sure that our clients are front runners and take the opportunity to change the system themselves instead of becoming a victim. And of course, as a bank, it's important that those clients then also are less risky. So there is a self-interest, a business interest to do so. Now, how do we do that? We do that by offering blended finance solutions that make it profitable and also attractive for our clients to move in this space. We provide transition finance, sometimes with longer tenors. Sometimes we also are able to lower the interest rates if and when our clients are able to reach targets to lower malnutrition. And in addition to doing so, we also try to combine to do matchmaking between edtech and fintech solutions scale-ups to help them become successful. So a number of different things that are done. And in addition to that, I am happy to announce that as part of the Zero Hunger Pledge that was launched at the UN Food System Summit under the leadership of Gain, for which we are very, very happy. We are happy to announce that we will pledge this week to the wonderful initiative of the Zero Hunger Pledge, a commitment to invest over 80 million euro to increase the access to finance to smallholder farmers in many developing and emerging countries in a combination of technical assistance, grants and revolving funds. So we have multiple angles to try to help build the solution through our clients, through our partners with whom we work. And that makes us also so very happy that we are in this partnership with Norinchukin Bank and our respected partner Umeda-san to work on this. Back to you, Steve.
Bas, thank you so much, and congratulations on that commitment. It's so important that when we focus on forms of malnutrition that are susceptible to direct market interventions like overweight, obesity, we don't forget the chronically hungry. And I think the effort that's been put in, not just by GAIN, but WFP and FAO are major players in that, to build a way the private sector can tackle chronic hunger directly, which you've contributed to today, is really important. I think maybe it would be good to ask your colleague from Norinchukin Bank, Umeda-san, who can be a link direct to the other Japanese companies, maybe to make some short comment based on your presentation as well. Umeda-san.
Yes, my name is Umeda from Norinchukin Bank, and thank you for this kind of opportunity to speak on our behalf. So rather than finance, well, Norinchukin Bank itself is tackling issues such as the double burden of malnutrition, and we are also looking at non-financial matters. And let me just verbally share you the initiatives that we have been undertaking, and I would also like to accompany them with my comments. So the first point that Norinchukin Bank is doing is that we are working with Mitsubishi and the Nikkei newspaper, and in the Otemachi Marunouchi Yurakucho area, which is a central business district in Tokyo. And in this area, we have an initiative called an Act 5, which is an SDG-related project. And this project is not only involving these three players, but it involves many other corporations, and it is like a platform of business practitioners in the area. And we have been partnering with Nikkei newspaper and Mitsubishi. These are major corporations. But so we have been disseminating information to the society, and the influence that these companies can provide is very big. And we are also partnering with smaller startups in recent days. And we look into innovation and digital transformation, etc. These are also the focal points. But through this kind of a multifaceted platform, we would like to focus more on realizing a balanced procurement of healthy food. And as Nishiyama-san spoke a few minutes ago, we also want to touch upon topics like cultured meat and alternative food sources. And we would like to shoot high in terms of pursuing ideals and improving the nutritional situation in the globe. And also, in order to promote a change of action going forward, we would like to invest for fostering a next generation that has an interest in promoting healthy food production and agriculture. So we would like to also look into the areas of education to the next generation. So Norinchukin Bank belongs to the JA Bank, which is an agricultural association-related financial institution. And we would like to approach the children to teach them about agriculture, to foster their understanding of the natural environment, etc. So we have an educational booklet that is being distributed to the primary schools. This is an initiative we have been doing for more than a decade. And by distributing the distribution of these booklets, it has exceeded 20 million so far, and we would like to continue with such an initiative. And lastly, Norinchukin, just like Rabobank, we are a financial institution for the agricultural business operators, and our organization is looking at focusing on the resolution of the poverty problem in the rural areas, in agricultural areas. But when we look at Greater Asia, we donate seminars and programs to Asian universities, especially in the Asian developing countries. And so that is another area that we are focusing on. And when we look at the more developed countries like Japan, we are looking at innovating our business models and focusing on new technology, and with the belief that they will all be beneficial to the recipient in the more underdeveloped countries. So thank you. This was an overview of what we do at Norinchukin Bank.
Thank you very much. We have now our final segment. I'm pleased to introduce Inga Kawa from the Access to Nutrition Initiative. ATNI, many of you know, it is the gold standard for nutrition and food benchmarking in our sector. It's got such a strong reputation. Most of the big companies in the food sector are part of it. Inga, what can we learn about accountability and reporting?
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Mizuno-san, for having me today to talk about accountability. Congratulations to all colleagues in Tokyo, but also around the globe on this important and exciting day of the Nutrition for Growth Summit. And I would like to thank specifically the government of Japan for the way the government has approached businesses in the preparations for this summit. Because on the one hand, business was at the table from the beginning, and on the other hand, there has been a strong push for accountability through the principles of engagement and other mechanisms. And that combination is, I think, the success factor for having more business commitments and more business solutions in the future. So thank you for taking that leadership. The Access to Nutrition initiative is providing businesses with accountability tools that track their progress on how they contribute to the double burden of malnutrition. And we look at several business components from product reformulation, innovation, marketing, workforce nutrition, labeling, also compliant with the code of marketing of breast milk substitutes. We assess how companies are doing. And that is very important because it is not only providing businesses, like we've heard today, with a roadmap for change, how they can step by step perform better on nutrition, but it also is a source of information for institutional investors, for policymakers. It makes clear where regulation is missing and where governments need to step in to create a level playing field. It is also providing a lot of inspiration for small and medium-sized enterprises. So accountability, although it may sound scary, in the end is really the key to successful business commitments and business performance. On our Global Index 2021, which we have presented in Tokyo a month ago, it was very clear that the index showed progress. And as Ajinomoto presented today, for example, we see more sodium targets and other targets on reformulations from businesses popping up. We see an increase of the number of companies that can improve their product portfolio, and we've also seen that more companies are having a tailored approach to tackle micronutrient deficiencies. So what's next? If we look at the future on accountability, there's one call to action that I would like to make to all companies around the globe, but especially also the companies in Japan that have made steps forward but can further improve and become global players by integrating nutrition considerations into their core business functions, to align more with international standards and guidelines, and to improve further disclosure to ensure accountability. So those were my final remarks on accountability. Back to you, Steve.
Thanks so much, Inga. Well, I wanted to ask a question of Ajinomoto. I think you're on the index, and maybe Ms. Morishima, what's your experience? Would you recommend your peer companies in Japan to also be part of the ATNI?
Inge-san, thank you very much for your great presentation. At the Ajinomoto Group, we are participating in ATNI's effort, and nutrition and global benchmark we regard as very important the index, because objective assessment will be leading to the higher confidence in that company, and this will certainly lead to increased business value too. More businesses should be able to participate in ATNIs from now on. That's our hope. I hope that the more Japanese businesses need to understand what the NI's index will be, and also there should be more interactions and conversation among businesses. There should be exchange of information among regions so that there will be higher understanding of regional specifics of the cooking and so on. So, and also we would like to see further evolution of those indexes, and which will be leading to a more impactful index. Thank you very much, and I hope you keep up a great work. Thank you.
I think that was a sales endorsement for you there, Inga. So that's great. We've come to the close of our session, and hello, sorry, I lost the signal there. We've come to the close of our session, and before handing back for the final closing words to Mizuno-san, I wanted just to make a couple of general observations. The first is, I start from what Abby said. She gave a great phrase, I thought, which was, we have to walk forward together in this public-private partnerships. And what I found impressive about today, listening to the companies, is that just as there are so many different aspects of malnutrition, there are so many ways private sector is already starting to target malnutrition. So we heard, interventions around core hunger, around diet quality, and importantly, I think also around making foods healthier by taking out components or ingredients that can be harmful, either allergens or salt, sodium, and, as it were, sugar and oil. I think that's really important. And what I think is, about looking at the Nutrition for Growth 2021 is that for the major companies, they are aligning their strategies to the SDGs in general and SDG 2. And that marks an incredible step up from what was pledged in 2013. It wasn't the same level of kind of coherence and system thinking. So that's great. The second is really an observation on partnerships and the importance of translating the experience and technical capacity of companies into local markets. And there I thought that was a very strong message coming from the international organizations to Japan. And I think that one of the things that comes through to me as an outside observer is that the building of a partnership between the government of Japan and the companies to help reach out and get this structured engagement from international organizations, the UN, the international partners, is something that could be a strong building block after N4G to help the companies both realize the commitments they're making and also expand the number of companies and the scale of commitments that are made in the run-up to SDG 2. So on behalf of all of the international participants in this very lively session, I now pass the word back to Maeda-san with thanks to MAFF and Government of Japan to close our session.
Thank you very much, Director Steve Godfrey, and thanks to your good chairmanship. We had very fruitful and very exciting discussion, and that gave good listen to our future activities. And before closing this session, one of the elements indicated in the previous speaker actually triggered my curiosity and my point of interest, so that please allow me go back to that comments made by Director Ing Kaur about the nutritious accountability. And thank you for mentioning the government part that should play in enhancing more nutritious accountability by the food companies. And as indicated by Ingakawa-san, that future step should be necessary for food companies to disclose more information in accordance with the international standard. And in that point, my point of question is that the current methodology of the ATNI is more focused on that the product-based approach, and what we need to say is that Japanese dietary pattern and Japanese food culture has a unique element from the rest of the world, in a sense that the more Japanese people use ingredients by cooking in comparison with the way that other parts of the world, and especially that the European part, intake the processed products directly to their meal. And in that sense, that some approach may be taken into account in improving the methodology of the assessment of nutrition. I mean that the way they cook and take each individual processed product could be incorporated into that assessment of the products. I just would like to seek the comments, if there is any, from Ingakawa-san on that point. I really appreciate for your endeavor on that point.
Yes, thank you, Mizuno-san. I think that's a very important remark. And so I think it is important to distinguish between the global index that is really setting the global standard, where we follow international standards from World Health Organization, the Food and Agriculture Organization, and where we want to assess companies that are active globally. But on top of that, we also have local country assessments where we tailor the methodology more to the specific nutrition challenges and nutrition topics that are happening in a country. So far, we've not done any assessment specifically for Japan, but perhaps that could be future cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ingakawa-san, and especially very encouraging comment for future cooperation between Japanese food makers and international players such as ATNI. And with that comment, and I'd like to get into that final remarks from Japanese side. And thank you very much for Steve's summary of this today's discussion. From our side, I'd like to pick up some of the very impressive points demonstrated by the series of commentators today's discussion. The major point of the importance for many food private sector is the accountability and the responsibility. We need to make food companies' activities and products more accountable with the strong responsibility. And one of the approach for that purpose could be the increased level of accountability for the nutrition and the other activity for the social purpose of food industry. And in that point, as a government official, my comment for that is Japanese players have started that approach just very recently, and we are making additional step with more help from the international global players with that. And in that sense, the point of expertise from these international players, as mentioned by previous speakers, was very important and very useful step, so that we count on more expertise from that brave professional and well-talented, well-experienced players in that global forum. And we have many difficulties in addressing these challenges, especially for that small and medium enterprises, as mentioned by Nancy, Aburto, and that is one of the challenges that the government of Japan is facing. How help SME sectors to be involved in this approach for that more responsible, more accountable way of food industries. And in response to the question raised by Steve, how the Japanese food makers and the Japanese government expect the global players to help our industries advance for that purpose. My assessment for that answer is that more good communication, and as Tanaka-san indicated in his comment, more direct communication and more message and more information from our Japanese industry side. And I think that today made a very good opportunity to show us that global players such as WFP, FAO, and WBCSD, and Rabobank, and ATNI had very more open-minded and open for the dialogue with our stakeholders. So that is very encouraging, and relying on that very kind and very favorable condition explained today, we'd like to make some message from our side of Japanese industries. And as indicated at the opening comment, many of Japanese individual players' action will be indicated in that attachment for the specific action plan compiled at the end of this side event tomorrow evening. And for them, if you look at them, that they will have very unique approach, and some of them is very effective and workable in Japanese circumstances. And also some of them could be applied to the broader context in the global market. And so it depends on the elements of the Japanese food companies individual. So having seen these various elements, and we can safely say that each individual countries and culture has their own methodology and suitable practice we should take. And important message we should send to the global player is that no one size fits all solution could be found in the area of improving nutrition. And with that comment, and we'd like to further approach and further effort we will make, and for each food company to pursue that goal and make specific actions. Today's conference was very useful and very informative, so that drawing good lessons from today's conference, the government of Japan and many of the Japanese food companies will surely make good cooperation with global players, and so that we will have achieved the good goal of solution of this double burden of malnutrition, the simultaneous overnutrition and undernutrition. With that kind of summarizing from our side, I'd like to finalize today's conference. And again, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude for all participants for today's discussion, and especially the participants from around the world and very far away from here. And it may be very early morning and in the other side of the world, and thank you very much. And your messages are well taken to our side, and so with that encouraging, we will step into that future stage. So thank you very much for today's participation.
Thank you.